Dear students, you are welcome here once again in my online teaching classes. Students, today I have brought the poem When You Are Old composed by William Butler Yeats. But before I proceed further, I would love to tell something about the poet. William Butler Yeats was born in Dublin in 1865 and died in 1939. He was a great Irish poet. He is considered one of the greatest modern poets also. He began writing poetry at his early age and he was much influenced by Spenser, Shelley and a few pre-Raphaelite poets also. He was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1923. Our present poem is When You Are Old. Let me express a few words about this poem. This is William Butler Yeats' memorable poem, which deals with the theme of love in a very unique way. It is said that the great Irish poet W.B. Yeats had immense love for Maud Gonne, who was equally active in native politics. He expressed his immense love to her several times, but he unfortunately always met with rejection. In this present poem, the poet tries to convince his beloved that he was the only person who loved her from the core of his heart. Let me read the whole poem first, then I will explain it to you. When You Are Old by William Butler Yeats. When you are old and grey and full of sleep, and nodding by the fire, take down this book and slowly read and dream of the soft look your eyes had once and of their shadows deep. How many loved your moments of glad grace and loved your beauty with love false or true, but one man loved the pilgrim's soul in you and loved the sorrows of your changing face, and bending down beside the glowing bars, murmur a little sadly how love fled, and paced upon the mountains overhead, and hid his face amid a crowd of stars. Dear students, now we will go through the poem line by line and we will discuss the analysis, paraphrase and summary of this poem. I suggest everyone not to skip the video, try to listen to it properly and note them down on your notebook. It would be, comprehending for you. So, what is the overview of this poem? This poem is composed by Irish poet William Butler Yeats, that was published from his second collection, The Rose, 1893. Here the speaker asks someone to think ahead to old age, strongly suggesting that the addressee will finally regret being unwilling to return the speaker's love. Most critics agree that the poem is about its relationship with Maud Gonne, an Irish actress and nationalist. So, let us start reading the poem. When you are old and grey and full of sleep and nodding by fire, take down this book and slowly read and dream of the soft look your eyes had once and of their shadows deep. So in the above lines, the poet addresses his beloved that she, should take down this book and read it slowly when she grows old. Her hair becomes grey and she sits by the fire feeling sleepy and nodding on some winter evening. He further suggests to his beloved that after going through the pages of the book of poems, she should recollect as if in a dream that her eyes once had the soft look and her eyes were deep and shadowy. It means she had very beautiful eyes. The use of the word nodding shows aging effect of the old age. It also creates a beautiful imagery. Dear students, let us read the second stanza. How many loved your moments of glad grace. Moments of glad grace. It conveys the idea about Modgon's beauty when she was very young to look at. Then the people were charmed to her and loved your beauty with love false or true. But one man loved the pilgrim's soul in you and loved the sorrows of your changing face. In this stanza, the poet suggests to her to analyze as to how many of the young men loved her truly or falsely. After a deep consideration that all of them had physical love in their hearts, but still there was one who loved her pilgrim soul. The poet also claims that he was always sensitive to the changes that went on her face from time to time. It shows the poet's deep devotion to her, and it is a testimony, it is a proof to his true love for her. He knew when her face showed the marks of sadness and sorrow. Only the poet was able to read and understand even the minute changes on her face. Here, the poet has called the soul as a pilgrim. It means that the poet also believes in the life after death. He thinks that human soul is immortal and leaves the body after death to take new birth. Thus, human soul travels like a pilgrim to reach its final abode, heaven, the pilgrimage. That is why the poet wants to convey to us by using the beautiful phrase pilgrim soul. Third stanza. And bending down beside the glowing bars, murmur a little sadly how love fled and paced upon the mountains overhead, and hid his face amid a crowd of stars. Dear students, let me explain it first. In this stanza, also the poet again imagined his beloved as an old woman who is sitting beside the fire. Now she is bending down the glowing bars of the fireplace and murmuring a few words of regret as to how the true love has fled from the world and become impossible to find. The poet uses personification here to bring out the meaning about that true love is a rare phenomenon on this earth. He says that it has left the earthly surroundings and fled by pacing upon the mountains. It has hid its face amid the crowd of stars. You know, one cannot pick up a star and bring it down on the earth. So it has become, to find true love on the earth. The use of the word murmur shows regret here. Here it may also be concluded that by presenting the picture of love disappearing from the earth, the poet means to make his beloved realize that his love for her is sacred, is true. If she did not accept his love, then in course of life she would repent, she would regret and feel regression for rejecting her true lover. And she would be sitting alone by the fireside thinking how her glory of youthful days fled and how she proved herself foolish by not accepting her true lover. That would be impossible to retrieve as are stars to be plucked down from the sky. So, what we have understood through this poem? In this poem, actually the poet narrates how his beloved Modgon would grow old with the passage of time. Her liveliness and youthful energy would vanish, and she would pass the time sleeping by the fireside as old people want to do the same. This is a sign of the aging effect. She would perhaps pick up the volume of the poet's collected poems and slowly go through the lines wherein the poet has declared his love for her and admired her graces, her charms. She would be reminded of the loveliness of her eyes that she once had and of their deep shadows. At the time She might think that many young people loved her for her beauty and youth, but there was only one whose love was sincere and genuine, and it was certainly the poet himself. The poet loved her not for physical beauty only, but also loved for her soul. It was the poet among all others who could feel for her and love her because sorrow and suffering were depicted on her face. That was not recognized by the other lovers because they were fascinated, they were attracted towards Morgan's physical beauty. But it was the poet W.B. Yeats, William Butler Yeats, who was charmed, who was enthralled, who got pleasure, and who was attracted by her inner conscience, inner soul, inner beauty. The continuous reading of the poet's love poems would set his beloved thinking desiringly of the past. She would then realize the value and importance of the poet's love. With this realization, she would mutter to herself, she would talk to herself with pain that he was no more alive. He was dead and gone, and his soul must either be roaming around, hovering among the mountains, or it must have become the part of the galaxy of the stars overhead. So students, this poem presents a beautiful portrait actually of decaying and dying youth and beauty. The poet has referred it to time and again quite passionately all through his poetic career. Morgan, his beloved, was a proud and headstrong girl. The poem sounds a note of warning to her. The idea is that if she does not respond to his love, which is not only physical but spiritual too, she would have to repent for her mistakes in her old age. But once the time is gone forever. Her youth and beauty would dry some other day and vanish it after some passage of time. And the lovers who hover round her, attracted by her bloom, would leave her one day, one by one. Then she would feel the sense of remorseful pain for the cruelty, for the hatred towards the poet. The poet intends giving her an advance warning. So students, I hope you have understood the poem. That's the end of it. Okay, so for any queries, you may put your comments in my comment box. Do subscribe